comes from the audience you think you need. When you live in a world where everyone can publish their best moments, it starts to feel like progress has to be displayed to be real. The mind begins to treat attention like proof, and that is where people get tired, confused, and rushed. A person can start working for the reaction instead of the result. They start choosing activities that look good instead of activities that build strength. They begin to measure the value of a day by whether it produced something showy. That is a poor scoreboard because it rewards the ability to present, not the ability to produce. And the two are not the same thing. And that's why the public record is never the full record. People do not broadcast their doubts, their messy drafts, their awkward first attempts, or their slow improvement. They broadcast the polished part, the best angle, the finished product, the moment that makes them look competent. If you stare at that all day, you will begin to believe that everyone else is doing it faster and better, and you are the only one who has to sweat. That's how the comparison trap gets built. This is one of the biggest mental mistakes people make. They compare their ordinary Tuesday to someone else's best 5 minutes. They compare their practice to someone else's announcement. They compare their early stage to someone else's later stage. Then they call themselves behind, not because they are behind, but because they chose the wrong comparison. And that wrong comparison has a cost. There is a cost to that comparison. It creates shame where there should be patience. It creates panic where there should be planning. It makes you think the slow part of progress means something is wrong, when the slow part is often the part that makes everything else possible. People quit too early, not because the work failed, but because their expectations got distorted by what they kept watching. Once that expectation gets distorted, the next belief shows up fast. A person can start to believe that if they are not getting noticed, they are wasting time. That belief will ruin a life. The hours that make you valuable are usually the hours that nobody claps for. Reading, practicing, learning, building, training, repeating, fixing mistakes, and doing the small things right does not look impressive from the outside. It looks ordinary, and ordinary is where the miracle is built. And the longer you live there, the more approval starts to feel like oxygen. When you train yourself to chase approval, you become dependent on it. You start needing someone to confirm that your effort matters. You start needing an outside voice to keep you going. That is dangerous because the outside world is inconsistent. Praise comes and goes, attention shifts, and people move on to the next thing. If your motivation is attached to the crowd, your discipline will rise and fall with the crowd. And once you depend on the crowd, your sense of time starts to warp with it. This changes how people talk about time. The calendar becomes a judge instead of a tool. People start acting like they need a dramatic change in a short window to be considered successful. They want a big leap on a tight schedule. They want a clean story that fits neatly into a year and makes for a good report. Real progress does not always fit into neat boxes. And a life is not built on deadlines. It is built on habits. And that pressure for a clean timeline creates a new kind of mistake. When people get trapped in short windows, they start forcing the wrong kind of progress. They try to compress learning into a quick burst so they can show a result. They skip steps because steps look slow. They avoid repetition because repetition looks boring. They want the end without earning the middle. Then the whole thing becomes fragile because they built speed without building skill. But fragile progress is not the same as being behind. Some people are not behind in life. They are simply in the part where things are being built that cannot be rushed. A person can be doing the right work and still look like Nothing is happening to someone who only watches finished products. That is why you must be careful what you stare at all day. What you watch becomes your standard, and your standard becomes your stress. And once that standard gets hijacked, even good days start to feel small. It is easy to feel inadequate when you are surrounded by constant displays. Even if you are doing well, you can feel like you are falling short because someone else made a bigger announcement. You can be improving and still feel like you are losing because someone else got a louder reaction. That is not a life problem. That is a scoring problem. So the first correction is to fix the scoreboard. You must separate performance from progress. Performance is what you show. Progress is what you become. Performance can be staged, but progress cannot be faked for long. Performance can be fast, but progress often has a slower rhythm because it includes correction, discipline, and learning. If you do not separate these, you will start to resent the process that is actually making you better. And when you look closely, the people with real results usually move through that slower rhythm. The people who build real capacity spend long stretches doing unglamorous work. They keep their promises to themselves. They work when they do not feel like it. They practice the basics. They fix the small errors. They improve their thinking. They build skills that are useful even when nobody notices. Then, later, when something shows up on the outside, it looks sudden to the public, but it was not sudden to the person who did the work. And that's why speed is such a misleading judge. Another trap is the belief that speed proves worth. In a loud culture, fast results get celebrated. Slow results get questioned. That teaches people to value quick wins over strong foundations. But a quick win without structure is often a future problem. A person can get a little success and then be crushed by it because they did not build the discipline to handle it. So you have to decide what kind of winning you're after. You do not need to win the approval contest. You need to win the character contest. You need to win the skill contest. You need to win the consistency contest. Those are quiet contests, and the prize is a life that works. A life that works is better than a life that looks good in a snapshot. And when you choose the quiet contests, you start noticing how much of the noise is really insecurity in disguise. Some people are constantly collecting evidence to show they are doing well. They feel uneasy if they cannot point to something public. They feel anxious if they cannot prove their progress to someone else. That anxiety becomes a leash. It makes them chase things that are easy to display instead of things that are hard to build. Which is why seriousness tends to come with privacy. A person who is serious has a different relationship with privacy. They do not need to advertise their practice. They do not need to announce every intention. They do not need to turn every step into a presentation. They understand that the workshop is not a stage. They do not confuse noise with value. And the point is not secrecy, it is independence. This does not mean you hide forever. It means you do not depend on being seen in order to keep going. It means you do not mistake attention for achievement. It means you do not let other people's public moments define your internal pace. You set your pace by your goals, your responsibilities, your character, and your commitment, not by someone else's display. Because once you let the outside world set your pace, it will start setting your choices. If you let the outside world rush you, you will make poor decisions. You will choose shortcuts. You will take on projects you're not ready for. You will skip preparation. You will try to look ready instead of becoming ready. Then when pressure arrives, the weakness will show up. Not because you lacked potential, but because you traded steady building for quick presentation. So you come back to what actually works and you keep it simple. The solution is to return to a simple principle. Your life is built in private before it can be lived in public. Your discipline is developed in the unseen hours. Your confidence is built by keeping small promises. Your capability is formed by repetition, correction, and steady effort. None of that needs applause to be real. Once you accept that, it becomes easier to see what's actually distracting people. People who keep their eyes on the crowd get distracted from the work. People who keep their eyes on the work eventually earn their own results. The first group gets exhausted trying to keep up with images. The second group gets stronger by improving what they control. The difference is not intelligence. The difference is what they choose to measure. So you stop measuring what's loud and start measuring what lasts. Measure what matters. Measure your consistency. Measure your output. Measure your learning. Measure your follow-through. Measure the quality of your habits. Measure your ability to do the right thing when it is not exciting. Those measurements will build a life that lasts, because the visible world has a way of making healthy growth look like failure. The greatest danger of this visible world is that it can make normal growth feel like failure. It can make the slow stage feel like defeat. It can make the basic stage feel embarrassing. But that is only true if you are trying to compete with presentations instead of building your own real strength. When you stop chasing the public scoreboard, you can return to the real work. And the real work is where your future gets constructed. And the reason so many people quit is that they keep judging the wrong evidence. Most people misread what is happening in their lives because they judge progress only by what shows up on the outside. If they cannot point to a clear, visible change, they assume nothing is happening. That assumption has caused more quitting, more doubt, and more wasted potential than almost anything else. You must understand this. Some of the most important growth you will ever experience will happen in a way that cannot be seen right away. If you want proof of that, look at what real strength actually is. Think about what it takes to build a strong person. Strength is not only what you can show. Strength is what you can handle. Strength is what you can carry without breaking. Strength is what you can endure without panicking. That kind of strength is developed quietly. It is developed in repetition. It is developed in routine. It is developed in the part of the journey where you wake up and do the work again, even though it feels like the day looks the same as yesterday. Which leads to something most people don't know how to name. I've come to learn that there is a stage in life where you are building capacity before you are building results. Capacity is not exciting to talk about, but it decides everything. Capacity is your ability to stay steady when things are uncomfortable. Capacity is your ability to keep going without needing a dramatic signal that you are winning. Capacity is your ability to do the basics well when nobody is watching and nothing is changing quickly. And that's why the flat stretch gets misunderstood. Some people hit a flat stretch and they call it a dead end. They say they're stuck. They say they're not improving. But really, they're not stuck. They are simply in a stage where the improvement is going deeper than the part that can be shown easily. What is happening is not flashy, but it is real. Your mind is learning. Your body is adapting. Your habits are settling in. Your judgment is getting sharper. Your emotional control is getting stronger. Those are not small things, even if they are not visible. This is why repetition gets such a bad reputation. Repetition is one of the most misunderstood forces in life. People want inspiration. They want a breakthrough. They want a big moment that changes everything. But most of life changes because of repetition. You repeat a skill until it becomes natural. You repeat a behavior until it becomes normal. You repeat a decision until it becomes your default. That is how a person becomes reliable. That is how a person becomes competent. That is how a person becomes steady. And over time, repetition stops being something you do and starts being something you are. When you repeat something long enough, you are not just doing it, you are becoming it. It starts as an activity, then it becomes a routine, then it becomes part of your identity. That is not poetry. That is how human beings are built. Your repeated actions become your character, and your character becomes your future. The reason repetition feels boring is because it is not entertaining. It is building structure. That's the hidden benefit most people miss while they're waiting on results. Here's the hidden benefit to this stage. It builds durability. Durability means you do not collapse under pressure. Durability means you can take a hit and keep moving. Durability means you can handle disappointment without quitting. Durability means you can face criticism without losing your mind. Durability is a major advantage, and it is rarely developed in the spotlight. It is developed in training and routine and in the long stretch of doing what needs to be done. And once you see durability, you stop interpreting delay as a verdict. This is where people miss what delayed results can mean. They assume delay means absence. They assume delay means failure. They assume delay means they do not have what it takes. But delay can mean depth. Delay can mean you are building a foundation instead of building a show. Delay can mean you are strengthening the part that has to hold the weight later. A weak foundation can produce a fast result, but it will not hold up when the demand increases. So if you want a life that holds up, you have to value what's being built when nobody is watching. If you want to become someone who lasts, you must learn to value the unseen stage. The unseen stage is where you build stability. The unseen stage is where you build discipline. The unseen stage is where you build skill that is dependable. The unseen stage is where you build emotional control so your moods do not run your decisions. Without that, any success you get will be unstable because you will not have the structure to support it. And with that comes a shift in what you rely on. And there's a mental shift you'll have to make. You have to stop needing outside confirmation to keep going. If you require applause to stay committed, you will always be at the mercy of the crowd. The crowd changes its attention quickly. The crowd is inconsistent. The crowd can praise you one day and ignore you the next. If your progress depends on that, you will be pulled around like a flag in the wind. So you replace applause with evidence you can verify for yourself. Instead, you must build internal reinforcement. Internal reinforcement means you know what you are doing and why you are doing it. It means you can look at your own behavior and say, this is better than last month. It means you can measure your follow-through. It means you can notice that you are stronger, steadier, more patient, and more capable, even if the outside world cannot see it yet. That is real confidence, because it is based on evidence you control. And when that becomes your standard, your definition of winning changes. A person who is serious learns to celebrate a different kind of win. Not the win of being noticed, but the win of being consistent. Not the win of being praised, but the win of being prepared. Not the win of making noise, but the win of making progress. That kind of win builds a life that does not fall apart when circumstances change. This is where you get power over your emotions instead of letting them drive the wheel. This is where emotional regulation is built. A person who cannot regulate their emotions will overreact to delays, overreact to criticism, and overreact to uncertainty. They will quit too early. They will start too many things and finish too few. They will chase comfort instead of growth. But a person who learns to stay steady in the quiet stage becomes powerful. They can handle long projects. They can handle slow development. They can handle the time it takes to do something right. And that steadiness is what depth looks like in real life. You must understand the advantage of depth. Depth means you are not easily shaken. Depth means you have practiced the basics long enough that you do not forget them under pressure. Depth means you have built habits that keep working even when you do not feel inspired. Depth means you have a foundation that can support larger opportunity when it arrives. Depth is not glamorous, but it is what holds up everything else. Which is why skipping this stage always shows up later as a problem. Many people want results without this stage, and that is why their results do not last. They get something quickly, but they cannot keep it. They get a little attention, but they cannot handle it. They get a little opportunity, but they do not have the discipline to take advantage of it. Then they call it bad luck. It was not bad luck. It was missing structure. So when you're in the slow part, treat it like what it is, preparation. So when you are in a quiet stretch, do not insult it. Do not call it nothing. Do not call it wasted. Do not call it behind. It may be the exact stage where your life is getting ready for the next level. The question is not, why is nothing happening? The better question is, what is being built in me right now that will matter later? And if you keep showing up, you'll eventually feel the payoff on the inside before anyone sees it on the outside. If you keep showing up, you will gain a kind of strength that cannot be borrowed. You will gain a kind of confidence that cannot be faked. You will gain the ability to perform under pressure because you have trained under repetition. You will gain stability, and stability is rare. Stability is valuable. Stability is what allows a person to build, expand, and carry responsibility without breaking. That's the job. Stay long enough for the invisible to turn visible. Your job is to stay with the process long enough for the invisible work to become visible. Your job is to keep doing the basics until they become automatic. Your job is to keep practicing until your skill becomes dependable. Your job is to keep building your character until your character becomes your advantage. That is how you win the long game. And the long game is the only game worth winning. And it's important to see why people slip right here. But this is exactly where many people slip. There is a mistake people make when they start feeling pressure. And that mistake is trying to force a result before they're ready to hold it. They want a big jump. They want a fast leap. They want something impressive now. But life does not work well when you demand a harvest before you have done the planting. If you rush what should be built, you do not get strength. You get something that only looks like strength. And when the breakthrough comes without the base, the pressure exposes it fast. When you push for a breakthrough without preparation, you are asking for trouble. You are asking for a situation you cannot handle. You are asking for growth that has no support under it. That kind of progress is fragile. It looks exciting at first, but it cannot take pressure. The first real test exposes what was missing. The first heavy load reveals the weak joints. That's how people end up on a bigger stage with the same old structure underneath. A person can become visible quickly without becoming capable. They can get attention without getting skill. They can get a bigger stage without getting the discipline to stand on it. That is why some people rise fast and then fall hard. It is not because they were cursed. It is because they took on more than they were built for. So keep the definitions clear, or you'll chase the wrong thing. Capacity and visibility are not the same thing. Capacity is your ability to handle responsibility without cracking. Visibility is simply being noticed. Visibility can increase in a week. Capacity usually takes time. If you chase notice faster than you build ability, you will eventually be exposed by the workload, by pressure, or by the demands of real performance. And the pressure isn't the villain, it's the truth teller. Pressure does not create weakness. Pressure reveals it. When a person takes shortcuts, the shortcut does not show up immediately as a problem. It shows up later when the demand increases. The person tries to scale something that was never built right. They try to perform at a higher level with a structure that can only handle the lower level. Then the strain starts, the stress starts, the mistakes start, and the panic starts. So, moving fast has to mean something different than skipping what matters. A lot of people misunderstand what it means to move fast. Moving fast is not skipping the basics. Moving fast is becoming so good at the basics that you can execute them without hesitation. Skipping the basics is not speed. Skipping the basics is debt, and debt always comes due with interest. And the reason the debt gets created is usually simple. People don't want the repetition. One reason people chase quick leaps is that they do not want to do repetition. Repetition feels slow. Repetition feels plain. Repetition feels like the same day over and over. But repetition is the part that creates reliability. Without repetition, you do not have a skill. You have a lucky day. Without repetition, you do not have discipline. You have a mood. Without repetition, you do not have a foundation. You have a hope. Which is why the temptation always points to the stage where you get credit, not the stage where you get built. The temptation is always the same. The temptation is to go straight to the part where you get credit without going through the part where you get built. People want to be seen as competent without doing the work that produces competence. They want to be treated as advanced without doing the work that creates advancement. They want the reward without the routine. And if you force it, you don't get freedom, you get maintenance. But here's what happens when you force growth too soon. You end up with outcomes you cannot maintain. You end up with results that rely on constant effort to hold together because they were not built right in the first place. You end up exhausted, trying to keep something alive that should have been stable. That is not success. That is stress with a label on it. And even when you pull it off, shallow learning shows up the next time you have to repeat it. There is the problem of shallow learning. Shallow learning happens when you expose yourself early without building skill first. You might get through it once, but you do not understand it. You might survive the moment, but you did not develop a system to repeat the performance. Then you face the same situation again, and you are back at the beginning because nothing was wired in. You are living on emergency effort instead of dependable ability. That's why busyness can be such a convincing lie. Some people confuse being busy with being prepared. They rush from one opportunity to the next. They take on new commitments. They chase bigger demands. They keep adding weight to a structure that is not ready. They feel important, but they are not stable. They feel active, but they are not effective. And the first big pressure point teaches them a painful lesson. So the real advantage isn't speed at the start. It's building what holds up later. The strongest people are not the ones who move the fastest at the start. The strongest people are the ones who build the right things early. They build their habits. They build their skills. They build their standards. They build their routine. They build their ability to focus. They build their ability to follow through. That work is not dramatic, but it is what creates lasting performance. And impatience is usually what tries to talk you out of that work. Impatience is a costly habit. It makes you choose speed over structure. It makes you choose quick reward over long-term benefit. It makes you ignore warning signs. It makes you treat preparation as optional. And when you treat preparation as optional, you are gambling with your future stability. Because rushing today often means paying tomorrow. A person can mortgage their future by rushing their present. They borrow from tomorrow to make today look better. They skip training and hope talent will cover it. They skip practice and hope confidence will replace it. They skip fundamentals and hope enthusiasm will hold it together. That is the kind of thinking that produces fragile outcomes. And there's a quieter cost. You train yourself to need novelty in order to stay consistent. There is a quiet damage that happens when you rush. You teach yourself that you cannot handle the slow work. You teach yourself that you need constant novelty to stay engaged. You teach yourself that boredom is a reason to quit. Then you become the kind of person who starts easily but cannot finish. You become the kind of person who needs excitement to be consistent. That is a weak position to live from. So if you want strength, you have to respect the sequence. If you want a strong life, you must respect the order of things. You must respect preparation. You must respect repetition. You must respect the time it takes for discipline to become normal. You must respect the stage where nothing looks exciting, but everything is getting built. Because artificial acceleration buys attention, not stability. You do not need artificial acceleration. You need real growth. Real growth holds up under pressure. Real growth can handle scale. Real growth does not collapse when the spotlight turns on or when the workload increases. Real growth can take criticism and keep moving. Real growth can take responsibility and carry it. So you choose what produces strength, not what produces a quick headline. So be careful what you chase. If you chase quick recognition, you might get it, but you may not be able to hold it. If you chase bigger opportunities before you build the ability, you may step into something that exposes you. If you chase shortcuts, you may save time today and lose years later fixing what should have been built right from the start. And when you commit to building right, you earn results that don't collapse the moment life gets heavy. The best path is not always the fastest. The best path is the one that produces strength. If you build yourself properly, the results you earn will not be a fluke. They will be stable. They will be repeatable. They will be yours to keep. That is the kind of progress that does not break when life gets heavy. And that's exactly why the quiet stretches matter. There are stretches in life where you look around and you think, nothing is moving. You can work for a while and not see much change. You can show up day after day, and it still feels like you are in the same place. A lot of people label those stretches as wasted time. They call it stagnation. They call it a dry spell. They call it being stuck. But often, that stretch is not empty. It is information. Because when the rewards slow down, the truth shows up. When things are not producing quick rewards, you are in the perfect season to study your own behavior. You can see what you do when nobody is cheering. You can see what you do when the day is ordinary. You can see what you do when there is no immediate payoff. Those moments tell you the truth about your habits, your priorities, and your standards. So you treat that season like a report, not a sentence. You must learn to treat quiet stretches as a time to gather data. Data about your discipline, data about your consistency, data about how you react when progress is slow, data about what you reach for when you feel bored or uncertain. The person who learns from these stretches comes out sharper. The person who only complains about them comes out bitter. And this is where most people get tripped up, by mood. The goal is not to rely on how you feel. Feelings are not a stable foundation. Your emotions can be high one day and low the next. Your motivation can show up one week and disappear the next. If you build your life on that, Your results will come in waves, and the low waves will destroy your momentum. So you need something sturdier than emotion. You need a way of operating that works on good days and bad days. You need a method that does not require you to be excited to follow through. You need something that stays in place when your mood changes. That is what a real system does. It gives you a structure to execute even when you do not feel like it. And once you see that, the real gap becomes obvious. Most people do not fail because they do not know what to do. They fail because they do not do what they know. The gap is not knowledge. The gap is execution. And execution is not a talent. Execution is a habit. Execution is built through routine, through standards, and through doing the small things without negotiating with yourself every day. And without that structure, the cost shows up later. There is a cost to not having structure. Every time you avoid the basics, you create future pain. Every time you skip the work you know you should do, you're not just skipping today. You're stacking up consequences. You're creating a bill that will be paid later. You might not feel it immediately, but you will feel it when pressure hits, and you do not have the ability you should have built. That bill is what a lot of people are carrying without realizing it. A lot of people live with that hidden bill. They keep postponing the fundamentals. They keep delaying the practice. They keep hoping things will turn out without the daily work. Then when the demand increases, they feel overwhelmed. They call it bad timing. It was not bad timing. It was the cost of postponement. And the way out is not a dramatic overhaul. It's daily execution. Daily execution is powerful because it compounds. The outside world often celebrates big moments, but big moments are usually built on a pile of small actions done repeatedly. One day of effort can make you feel proud, but a steady series of days changes your skill, changes your health, changes your finances, changes your character, and changes your future. The change is not always visible right away, but it is happening. And this is why living by mood is so expensive. A person who lives by mood will have an inconsistent life. They will work hard when they feel inspired and disappear when they do not. They will start strong and fade out. They will rely on intensity instead of consistency. Intensity is not bad, but intensity without consistency is unstable. It burns hot and burns out. So the long-term winners simplify the decision-making. The person who wins over time learns to operate on a plan. They decide what gets done regardless of emotion. They reduce the daily debate. They stop asking themselves every morning if they feel like doing what needs to be done. They have already decided. They have a few simple actions they execute, and those actions become the backbone of their progress. And quiet stretches are the test that proves whether that backbone exists. Quiet stretches are where this becomes clear. When nothing exciting is happening, the system is what carries you. When no big reward is showing up, the system is what keeps you on track. When you cannot rely on adrenaline, the system is what keeps you moving. That is why these stretches are valuable. They reveal whether you are prepared for long projects and serious goals. And when you see quiet stretches that way, panic starts to lose its grip. Another benefit of thinking this way is that it reduces panic. If you believe every slow period is a crisis, you will live in stress. You will constantly think you are running out of time. You will make rushed decisions. You will jump to new things too quickly. But if you understand that slow periods are normal, you can stay calm and stay consistent. And that calm comes from a longer horizon. A long horizon is one of the strongest advantages you can have. Most people live in short cycles. They want quick proof. They want quick applause. They want quick confirmation. But a person who thinks long can stay steady. They can invest without needing immediate recognition. They can build without needing immediate praise. They can do the daily work without needing a dramatic payoff. And the longer your horizon, the better your choices get. If you will give yourself more time, you will make better decisions. You will be less tempted by shortcuts. You will be less shaken by delays. You will be less impressed by quick wins that do not last. You will value solid progress over flashy progress. And solid progress is the kind that holds up. So if things feel slow right now, treat it like a signal to observe, not a reason to spiral. So if you are in a stretch where it feels like things are not moving, do not panic. Pay attention. Look closely at what is happening in your routine. Look closely at what you are doing each day. Look closely at where you are inconsistent. Look closely at what you avoid. That is not a punishment. That is a report. And once you have the report, you do what serious people do. You adjust. Then you correct it. You adjust the daily actions. You tighten the standards. You reduce the excuses. You build a structure that can carry you through different moods, different seasons, and different circumstances. Because if you can do that, your progress will not depend on how you feel, and it will not depend on whether life feels exciting. And that's what a good system is for. Not perfection, but movement. A good system does not guarantee a perfect week. It guarantees that you keep moving even when the week is not perfect. It keeps you from drifting. It keeps you from quitting. It keeps you from making the same promises over and over with no follow-through. It turns your goals from wishes into work. And that's the payoff most people are actually looking for. Dependability. That is the real advantage. When you stop relying on emotion and start relying on structure, you become dependable. And when you become dependable, you become dangerous in the best way. You become the kind of person who can build something that lasts. Not because you got lucky, but because you learned how to execute every day. And once you're executing daily, you have to redefine what winning even means. Most people have a definition of winning that depends on the outside world. They want a visible milestone. They want a public marker. They want something that proves they are doing well. That kind of measurement creates a fragile life because it puts your sense of progress in someone else's hands. If the outside world responds, you feel good. If it does not, you feel behind. That is not a solid way to live. So you need a definition that works when nothing special happens. You need a definition of winning that you can use on an ordinary day when there is no applause and nothing dramatic happens. Because most days are ordinary. Most of life is built in regular hours, with regular effort and regular decisions. If your definition of winning only works on special days, you will feel like you are losing most of the time, even while you are making progress. And that's where internal reinforcement comes in. A better way to measure is to look for internal reinforcement. Internal reinforcement means you can see your own improvement without needing an audience to confirm it. It means you can recognize that you kept your promise today. It means you can recognize that you stayed calm under pressure. It means you can recognize that you did the difficult thing instead of the easy thing. Those changes matter because they are structural. They change what you are becoming, which means you start valuing wins that actually build your future, not just your image. You must learn to value the kinds of wins that build your future. These wins are usually small. They do not look exciting. They do not make for a dramatic story, but they are the very things that create long-term results. One of the greatest mistakes is ignoring small improvement because it does not feel impressive. Small improvement is how life actually changes. And a lot of the most important progress never looks dramatic while it's happening. Consider the kind of progress that does not show up immediately on a chart. You choose better words when you are frustrated. You stop arguing with yourself about doing the work. You sit down and execute without the drama. You read instead of wasting time. You practice the basics instead of chasing shortcuts. You recover faster after setbacks. You become less reactive. You become more consistent. Those are wins because they increase your ability to operate. And this is why distance covered can be a misleading judge all by itself. The mistake many people make is using distance covered as the only measurement. They ask, how far am I? When they should also ask, how strong am I? Distance can be misleading because you can move quickly in the wrong direction, or you can move quickly with weak structure. Strength is different. Strength tells you whether you can hold what you gain. Strength tells you whether you can handle responsibility. Strength tells you whether your progress will last. So you keep the scoreboard tight and within your control. So you start measuring what you control. You measure your follow-through. You measure your consistency. You measure the quality of your habits. You measure how often you do the right thing when you do not feel like it. You measure whether you are building discipline or avoiding it. Those measurements reveal real progress, even if the outside world cannot see it yet. And if you want to make that concrete, you define it in small, specific proofs. A practical way to do this is to define clear micro wins. A micro win is a small proof that your structure is improving. It can be simple, but it must be real. You got up when you said you would. You completed the work block you planned. You did the practice even though you did not feel motivated. You stayed respectful when you were irritated. You handled a setback without quitting. You corrected a mistake instead of defending it. You followed the plan instead of following the mood. And those small wins add up because they're identity votes. These may sound small, but they are not small. Each one is a vote for the kind of person you are becoming. Each one strengthens your internal foundation. Each one builds trust with yourself. And trust with yourself is one of the most valuable forms of confidence. A person who trusts themselves does not need constant outside reassurance. And another way to check growth is to look at what you can handle now. Another way to evaluate progress is to ask, what can I handle now that I could not handle before? Can you handle boredom without drifting? Can you handle criticism without falling apart? Can you handle slow progress without panicking? Can you handle responsibility without needing constant encouragement? Can you handle discomfort without quitting? Those are measures of maturity and stability. And stability is what allows you to build something real. And that stability shows up most clearly in how you make decisions. You want to evaluate your improvement in decision making. Early in life, many people make decisions based on emotion. They act when they feel good and stop when they feel bad. Over time, you want to become the kind of person who can execute through different emotions. That is a major sign of progress. When you can do what needs to be done regardless of mood, you have moved into a different level of personal power. And part of that power is refusing to let public pace set your private timeline. You must learn to trust your timing more than public pacing. Public pacing is what you think you are supposed to match because you see other people moving. But you do not know their full story. You do not know what they skipped. You do not know what they are hiding. You do not know what is stable and what is fragile. You only know what you control, and you control your own actions and your own standard. So when you trust your timing, you stop trying to impress the clock. When you trust your internal timing, you stop rushing for appearances. You stop chasing outcomes you cannot hold. You focus on building strength and stability. You allow the work to mature properly. You allow skill to become dependable. You allow discipline to become normal. That is not slow. That is smart. And this is where sustainability becomes the real test, not achievement. There is a difference between achievement and sustainability. A person can achieve something once with a burst of effort. Sustainability means you can keep it going without collapsing. Sustainability means you can repeat the performance. Sustainability means your life can hold the results you are chasing. This is the ultimate proof of real growth. Not that you reached a point, but that you can live at that point without losing yourself. And that's why steady wins beat burst wins in the long run. If you can only win in short bursts, you will live in cycles of intensity and burnout. If you can win steadily, you can build a life. The goal is not a moment of victory. The goal is a pattern of strength. The goal is not to impress someone for a week. The goal is to become someone who can operate consistently for years. So the definition has to change from milestone chasing to pattern building. So redefine winning. Winning is not only the big milestone. Winning is the daily action that builds the person who can reach the milestone and keep it. Winning is the small decision that strengthens your discipline. Winning is the quiet improvement that increases your capacity. Winning is the ability to stay steady when the outcome is not immediate. And when that's your definition, behind stops making sense. When you build your life on that definition, you stop feeling behind. You stop chasing the wrong proof. You stop letting public markers control your mood. You begin to feel strong because your progress is real and it is happening in the part of your life that actually matters. The part you carry with you everywhere you go. And that brings you back to the final standard. Can you keep what you gain? Sustainability is the final test. It is not enough to reach a level. You must be able to stay there. It is not enough to have a good month. You must be able to have a good year. It is not enough to make a change. You must be able to keep the change. And the person who can keep it has something far better than a quick win. They have real growth, and real growth is the only kind worth building.